Alright, hey everybody, I just want to show you real quick differences between really good jumping and landing mechanics versus bad here. So we're going to take a look here. We've got these videos synced up. Athlete on the left is a younger athlete, and athlete on the right is a really good, strong athlete here. So we just want to show you real quick here. So when you get to the peak here, we go. So now we see that the athlete on the left, we can see, we've all heard that term knock-kneed, right? So when someone walks, they've got like their knees sort of come in together, that Q angle, the hip, so that hip angle. And we can see here really clearly that her knees are literally banging together when she goes for her jump. So number one, you know, if an athlete's going to jump from a bad position, they'll probably land in a bad position. That's kind of typically how it works here. And what we see here, though, not just those knees, so with the knees slamming together here, we also notice that she has lost the arches in her feet, so her feet have gone flat. So that tells me there's no torque in her hip at all. So there's nothing kind of going on up there. There's no torque, so she can't, for her sake, she can't generate any power. And then long term, what we're looking at is that female athletes are about 7 times more likely to get an ACL injury than males. And there's a few reasons for that, and we can kind of see that really clearly in this example here. So now let's look over to the athlete on the right, and I'll explain the reasons for the acute injuries when it comes to females. So number one, we see that her knees are obviously in a much better position here. Those knees are pressing out. She's developing a lot of torque in the hip, and we can tell that by the arches in her feet here. She's literally pulling the ground so she can develop all kinds of torque, all kinds of power and stability through her hip and her knee to generate as much force as possible and maintain a really stable environment for that knee. So a few reasons why female athletes typically get those ACL injuries is number one, strength is part of it, especially in younger athletes. Number two, the angle of the hip. It puts their knee in a compromised position, just, you know, as a blanket statement there. So when the athlete, especially younger athlete that maybe not as strong as the athlete we have here on the right, if she's not mobile enough to gain that position, if she's not strong enough to really force through her hips to generate that torque, and strong enough to have that stability through her hip, her ankle, and her knee, then we'll see this kind of scenario here crop up. So if she's not mobile enough to get in a good position, she's going to make up for that mobility one way or another. You know, body's going to adapt to that. If she's not strong enough, then that's going to put her really at risk for that injury. So we can see that in the differences here between these two athletes. And so now, as we go through, you can see the athlete on the right, she's really used all that torque. Her arms weren't in the best position, but we kind of more focused on the legs here. And we see now the athlete on the left, watch those knees collapse in. So if we're kind of just focused here on the knees, watch the knees come in when she's landing. So if she doesn't have the stability in that knee, that's where that acute injury is going to happen, so an ACL tear. And then she's really has a bad opportunity here to see some bad stuff happen later on in life. So just some repetitive strain injury going through that same process over and over again, or her jumping and landing incorrectly, is going to give her, more than likely, this athlete, if it's not corrected, then we have to really consider what's going to happen down the road. So the jump mechanics, you can see, and the reason why I picked the athlete on the right is her jump mechanics were not great at all. But because her hips, her knees, her ankles, feet were in a good position, we'll notice this in athletes that are pretty high caliber, where they can kind of get away with stuff because of their strength, and they tend to hide kind of improper movement patterns because of their strength and their power. So as the athlete on the right lands, she lands off balance, no control in her arms, but because her hips, her knees are in a good position, she develops that torque right. She's really good at that, developing that torque to kind of stabilize the knee, that she can get away with that. Now, if the same scenario with the athlete on the right, if we watch her land here, so we're going to go super slow. We're going to watch her frame by frame, and we see she hits, and those knees start coming together. Again, we got to watch for that ACL injury. So all the athletes out there, really be mindful of how you're landing, and don't just do what your coaches ask of you in practice. You guys have to practice this all the time. And same with coaches. You can't just turn a blind eye to these athletes, because it's up to you to be able to help that athlete fix that landing mechanics. I mean, if we had crappy brakes in our car, we wouldn't be driving it, right? Well, some of us might, but hopefully not many. So if we had crappy brakes in our car, we wouldn't drive it. So if we have these athletes who have a bunch of jumps, hundreds of jumps, some for volleyball, basketball athletes, and they're doing this over and over again for years and years, if that's not being corrected, then it's going to take forever to correct down the road. At best, she's going to have long-term knee pain, and at worst, she's going to get an acute injury there for sure as she grows more into her body. So again, guys, make sure that you're not just coaches out there. Don't turn a blind eye. It's everyone's job to make sure that these kids get the proper mechanics, the mobility, stability, and strength to do the jobs that everyone needs from them. And athletes, take a look real quick. Then use this video as a quick training tool to see how your knees, your feet, and your hips are. And if you look like the athlete on the left, make sure you're getting the right help to try to fix that problem, okay? We'll talk to you soon.